أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. With this next segment of Islamic jurisprudence, I'm going to give you just an introduction for the next few nights. And this introduction is necessary, although it's not a part of jurisprudence, it is a part of fundamentals. And that we believe in God, and we believe in one God, and that this God has no partners, and that this God is not any embodiment of any type, and is not someone that we can describe in any way other than describing what he is not. And this is fundamental in your belief. And it is fundamental. When I say fundamental, it means this is the difference between heaven and hell. This is the difference between being accepted by God and being rejected by God. And of the fundamentals is to believe in God being just. And to reject this is also the difference between heaven and hell. To believe in the prophets and the imams and to reject this is also the difference between heaven and hell. And to believe in a day of accountability and to reject this is also the difference between heaven and hell. And we move along to what we call the branches of religion. Generally, these are described in 10 parts, and they are more. But 10 is what we generally deal with in our day-to-day lives. And of them is the prayers, which is the pillar of religion, and is the fasting, which we are doing in Shahr Ramadan. Do these things bring me into faith and remove me from faith? This is my question. If I do not pray, does it guarantee me the fire of hell? Now this is where we need to understand where fasting lies. You know, because you have all the naysayers in this world. You know, the people that tell you, why do you commemorate the day of Ashura, for example? Not commemorating the day of Ashura won't necessarily place you in the fire of hell, but you pretty much set your road there. But with fasting, it's different. And praying is different. The furu', the branches of the religion, it's different. If I don't fast, I'm considered Islamically as a fasiq. Someone that is what? Someone of, this is the opposite of a'adil, someone that is of impeccable character. Fasiq is someone of, you could say a decadent character, someone of a very bad character, someone that you would not vouch for. Someone that if they said that they knew you, you'd say, I do not know them. So a person that does not fast, a person that does not pray, a person that does not perform Hajj is a fasiq. However, there is another level. And this is why when we look at the furu' on the branches of religion, can they be part of the usul? Yes. In what sense? It comes with the belief in them. If I am someone that does not pray, then I am a fasiq. I'm a moral character. But if I'm someone that rejects prayers and says it is not wajib to pray, Like you've seen those people that they drink alcohol. They drink alcohol, wal-iyadhu billah, God forbid. And when you tell them this is haram, they say, no, it's only haram if you get drunk. This person's not considered a fasiq anymore. He's not an immoral person. He is a kafir. He becomes an apostate. Because he becomes a murtad. Because he is attributing something to the religion of the musallamat. When we say musallamat, these are what is commonly known. Is there any person on this planet, Muslim or non-Muslim, that does not know that alcohol is haram in Islam? Everyone you meet, the Aussies you work with, they know you're a Muslim, you don't drink alcohol. So if a Muslim comes out and says it's not haram to drink alcohol, he's an apostate. He's changing the laws of God. Likewise, the one that says prayer is not worship. Likewise, the one that says fasting is not worship. Now, over the following nights, we begin our discussion with this. We will begin keeping in mind that fasting is broken up into 4 of the ahkam. We don't have mubah fasting. There's no such thing as doing fasting that is mubah, because fasting is an act of worship. So it has to fall in one of the 4 categories. It's either wajib, like in Shahr Ramadan, or mustahab, like worship, like fasting in Sha'ban or Rajab, or it's makruh, like fasting on the day of Arafah, one day before the Eid, on the day of Arafah. If you fast on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah and you know it will tire you while you are in Arafah, it becomes makruh. Like that, if you want to look at that ruling. And it can be haram. Fasting can be haram if you fast in the 2 Eids. So this is just to begin us for the following weeks. But our discussion tonight begins with a character that's generally portrayed in a bad way in the Book of God. And this character and this individual is not someone that is of the bad people, but is of someone that went down a bad path. Like you and I, that could fall down or walk down a path that takes us away. One of the biggest mistakes when it comes to Muslims in general is we don't like to take precaution. We take chances. And that's why when you go even to the Muslim world where there's no laws, it's okay for 20 kids to be piled up on top of each other while the car is moving at 100 miles an hour on the freeway. It's okay because we don't believe, or the laws of inertia probably don't apply there. If I brake, no one's going to fly forward. Just everyone stays where they are. This is the mentality that exists when it comes to the Islamic world. We don't like to take precaution. We all like to walk on the edge. And this is with our lives. Especially with our lives when it comes to mixing and mixed gatherings and our interactions between the genders. We have this habit. I used to remember we get on the bus before I used to go on the Hajj. Before I used to go with groups where we had a say. Before we had no say, some of the groups you'd sit and it was a free-for-all, and then a lady would want you to sit next to her. She goes, "Faddal ya ibni." She goes, "Ani mithl umma." Come sit next to me, my son. I'm like your mother. No, you're not my mother. This is the problem. Or you'll see 2 cousins frolicking and playing, and they say, "We're like brothers and sisters." You're not brothers and you're not sisters. Not in the way you want. Islam has made a simple system. In Islam, you are either a mahram or you're not a mahram. Either this person can interact with you or they can't. And even with the interactions, there are different levels. Pretty much, when we look at the female, there's no limits when it comes to the way she interacts I know if you ask the females, I say, yeah, the way do I interact with my friends at a party? Because honestly, if you ask a woman, when does she dress to kill? When she goes to a wedding or a party, not when she's at home with her husband. That's when she dresses to kill. But the time that a woman has no boundaries with the opposite gender is when she is with her husband. And everyone else, there is a limitation. Yes, I can interact with my brother. Sometimes a woman say to her husband, "Sure, are you jealous of my brother?" It's not about jealousy, dear. It's about rules and regulations that Allah Azza wa Jal has implemented and has placed here. And people tend to overlook them. And this is the lesson that we are entering here. We begin with Yusuf alayhi salam being taken from the well. And then Yusuf being sold. When he is purchased, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَقَالَ الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ مِن مِصْرَ لِامْرَأَتِهِ أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ عَسَىٰ أَنْ يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. Firstly, that's wonderful. The one that purchased Yusuf, what did he say to his wife? He took this young boy, he was a youth, still not a teenager, he was a young boy, and he said to her, Akrimi mathwa. In other words, give him a comfortable residence, make him feel at home. Why? He says, Asa an yanfa'una. So perhaps this person can be useful to us. Like he could be like an errand boy, a farm boy, someone that can do things for us. أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. And here's the problem. We begin here, he says we can adopt him. Can she take him as a son? No. To take him as a son, there are rules. If you want to have a cut and paste and gluey religion, then go to Sahih Bukhari and go and read the hadith about breastfeeding a grown man and how he can become halal on you. You can follow that path, or you can follow what Ahlul Bayt alayhum as-salam say. What Allah Azza wa Jal has brought down for us to follow. So she takes him to adopt him in this case. Now, there is a purpose why they have taken him. The Aziz here, or the chief of Masr, has taken him to adopt him. Why? Because he's impotent. In other words, he doesn't get children. It's further than that. This individual, not that he doesn't get children, as in he's not capable of having children, he's not capable of even interacting to have children. Faham kun ziyadi. Everyone can understand what that means. Okay? He can't hoist a flag, that's his situation. He cannot have children. So therefore, he thinks in his way, what do I have? I have a child now. I can raise this child. This child can be mine. But he doesn't look at what? At basically, what they say, وَحَجِبْ الدِّبْ عَلَى كَرْمُ. Someone that brings the bear into what? Into his vineyard or into his orchard. When you bring the problem towards you, you bring the problem into your house. He has brought the problem into his house. So then Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ. That after a while he matured. And the narration says after 3 years, this young boy became a man. This man, when we look, when you look at Australian law, they will tell you you're not a man until you're 18. So in other words, when you're 17 years and 364 days, you're not a man. That 1 second needs to tick over. That takes you from boy to man. In Islam, we have physical maturity. You're a man. And the Islamic law, you are accountable in the eyes of God because you are a man. in this case. And this is why we have a problem. How often do you read the news and you find a school teacher involved with some kind of romp with a student? And then they all sitting there, how did this happen? How did we end up here? How did it get to the point where this poor child, he's a man, this poor child end up having a relationship with this predator of a teacher, and they make the teacher into a monster of some kind. He's a man, she's a woman. He has an effect on her, she has an effect on him. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. She has these effects on him. So rather than sit there and think, where is the problem? The problem is evident. This is where the problem emerges from. Emerges from this situation, allowing them to be together. Hala Yusuf alayhi salam took the correct precautions. The beginning of the problem here is this errand boy or this slave boy or this potential adopted son is not really a son. Alaikum assalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the problem we have here is seclusion. When we talk about seclusion or khilwa, what do we mean by seclusion? Seclusion is when a man and a woman are alone. Now, in the case of Yusuf alayhi salam, he was excused because he was a slave. He was forced to be there. It's not like he chose to be there. He was forced. He couldn't just flee because you know what happens to slaves. You probably watch your fair share of documentaries at school to see what would happen to a slave that fled. But he took his precautions because he knows the rules. He knows that your cousin is a foreign woman. Your sister-in-law is a foreign woman. Your work colleague is a foreign woman. Your classmate is a foreign woman. Your school teacher is a foreign woman. Even your master, the lady of the house, is a foreign woman. Yusuf alayhi salam would always have his eyes on the ground. He would lower his gaze. For how long? 1 day? 2 days? He was there after the 3 years that he became mature. He was there for 7 years. 7 years, she was with him for 7 years, wearing whatever she could to entice him. And he would not raise his eyes. He would look at the ground. And then she said to him, take a look at me. Just a simple look. And he says, perhaps I may become blind. She says to him at this point that your eyes are so beautiful. She's trying to entice him. He said, did you know that these eyes are the first thing in the grave that fall upon your cheeks? See, he's reminding her of death. And then she says to him, your smell or your scent is so pure. He said, only if you smell my scent 3 days after. He means 3 days after the grave. He says, you will flee. Bringing a reminder of death. But then she can't take this anymore. She says to him, why is it you will not come to me? Why is it you will not come near to me? He said to her, if I come near to you, he says, abstaining from coming near to you brings my proximity closer to my Lord. So if I have to choose between you and God, the choice is already made. He gives you what? The idea of precaution. You know, sometimes you'll be sitting there and see, the devil doesn't tell you to have a look. What the devil does, he says, you know, do you know this person? You know, just take a look. You might know this person. You know it's a female. Or you could hear the clickety-clack of the stilettos walking across the street. He entices you. Just so your eyes, because a guy looks, women don't understand this. This is for men. When a man looks, he rates. He gives her a rating. It's something within the man's head. This is the way the man functions. This is why Allah Azza wa Jal says not to even make this first look, to keep your eyes down. And she attempts in many ways in order to bring him towards her. And this is where his trial begins with her. And she tries to seduce him. She tries to bring him to do what he will not accept to do. And the fact that he refrains from moving towards the seduction, what does she do? She asks. She starts to get advice. You know, when you want to do something and it's not working, you get advice. She asks one of her friends, her close confidants, and she says to this friend, how do I entice him? She says to her, what do you mean, how do you entice him? You're a woman. You just call a man and the man will come to you. And she says, in fact, you are the most attractive woman. She was one of the most attractive women of her time. Says, you don't need much of an effort to bring him towards you. Has he not seen your beauty? And she said, no. He keeps his eyes to the ground. He will not even look at her. She puts mirrors everywhere in her room, brings him into a room in order for him to look. Then he looks into the direction where there are no mirrors. This is what we talked about in the first night. Taqwa is guarding himself from evil. Then she says, this is it. It's going to happen whether he likes it or not. So she goes to her next step where she locks the doors. She locks the doors and she calls him. Hey, talaq, meaning come, you come here, that's it. It's on, you can't run away now. And the thing is, Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran that they race towards the door. He runs towards the door to run from her, and she races with him at this point. She races in this direction with him. Now, when they arrive at the door, at this point she's grabbed him by his shirt and she's ripped his shirt, and in walks the chief. And the story that is known at this point, where he is able to prove his innocence. But the chief says something very important. And this point that the chief mentions is very important for you and me. And had it not had this importance, Allah Azza wa Jal would have counted it. He would made a counter for it in the Quran, just like when the Queen of Sheba in the Quran says that if the kings entered a village, what they do, they would corrupt the village. She mentions this and God does not counter. Allah Azza wa Jal does not do a rebuttal or refute this in any way. Likewise with this. When it is discovered that she is the culprit, she is the one that enticed him, she is the one that seduced him, and Yusuf is adamant to bring about his innocence because he is a slave and she's the wife of a chief. And then the chief, or the Aziz of Masr, he says to her that this is from your guile. And your trickery, the way of you beguiled him, the way you deceive and the way you trick. And he says, Inna kayda kunna azim. Now you think about this verse, Inna kayda kunna azim, that the way that you trick, the way that you deceive is great. This does not mean, see, a lot of people may think that this means that a woman deceives. I'll explain what it actually means. Because if you take a look at it, Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, Inna kayda shaitan kana da'ifa. That the shaitan, his guile or his trickery or his method of deceit is very weak. But with a woman, it's very great. So someone will come along and say, see, she's worse than the devil. This is not what it means. What that means, the guile of the devil against that of God's is very weak. But the guile of the woman against the man is very strong. Do not underestimate this. When you think I can control myself, you can't control yourself. This is why Allah Azza wa Jal set these rules. This is why when we talk about the laws of seclusion, if you look at the, I've seen a fatwa the Maraja have, and it's, you could say it's a unanimous, ubiquitous fatwa. You'll find it, this decree, in all the books. And if I tell it to you, you think I'm going to be excessive here. If you enter a lift with a woman by yourself, it is haram. They consider that khulwa. Unless it's Charlie in the Great Glass Elevator. You know what I mean? Unless it's something out of a Roald Dahl novel. Unless if someone cannot see you while you're in that lift, it becomes forbidden. Why? And I've seen this law, this decree with every marja. I haven't seen a marja that doesn't give this fatwa. And I looked for it. Why? Why is there such an emphasis on this idea of seclusion? Because Allah Azza wa Jal knows what He's created with the man, and knows how the man is, and knows the way that the man functions, and the way the man, not only the way the man functions, the way the man is perceived by humanity. Even when you apply for a job, and people sit there and go, the world is sexist. The world is how it is. A man is generally employed for what? For his ability to perform the job. The woman, when she applies for employment, look at the criteria they look at. If you think I'm being sexist, let's look at the way women are judged in this world. Take a look. The beauty pageants, what are they judging them on? Honestly, if you took the collective IQ of those present in a beauty pageant, you wouldn't get half the IQ of a pigeon. Honestly, if you sat there and listened to these people when they're being interviewed, what do they think? You think they say they want world peace? Because they think world peace means pressing a button and rainbows and confetti flies out of the sky and everyone starts giving each other high fives. This is what their perception of world peace is. And this is the way that they are used in this world to measure, to be judged by the people. So Allah Azza wa Jal has made these rules. That there should not be seclusion, and I should treat every individual keeping in mind that I may fall into sin. Likewise with the story of the chief's wife. Inshallah, there are another 2 parts to it, tomorrow and the 3rd night. But our first night, we are emphasizing on this point, that we need to be wary when it comes to how we treat and deal with the opposite gender, and we need to be wary when it comes to seclusion, because this is what it brings about. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us our transgressions. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. Just remember, this dua is very important. That you ask Allah that this night does not pass and you are left with an inkling, anything of a sin that you may be punished with. So we ask on every night that we finish this night with a clean slate. Insha'Allah bil barakat as-salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.